Today, we're going to be glazing in some skin tones on my main man, Nemo. Yo, dog, Kenny Bichet here, Next Level Painting. Hitting you up on the literal best of all days here in the Beats Lab in Hollywood, California. We're doing it again. Last week, we worked on a P3 bust, Commander Nemo. We used a lot of P3 colors. We showed you how secretly easy painting those large models is. We used the airbrush to nurture out some pretty nice and smooth skin tones and some hair. We also showed you how to do those goggles, all those fresh lens effects. Today, we're switching it. I'm going to show you how to use glazes to nurture out a very realistic skin tone and take that skin to the next level. And don't worry, we have a secret weapon. An amazing formula designed by my man, Les, and then eventually sold by Secret Weapon. I have the full set here. Now here's the thing that's a little misleading. It's marketed as a wash. In the miniature world specifically, we've kind of got it twisted on what washes and glazes are. They're almost the same thing. It's not a product, it's a technique. But some companies do make amazing products that make that technique easier. We've talked about Army Painter many times here. They make one of the best washes in the game. And when I say wash, I mean in the sense of a full-blown gangster wash where you wash the whole model, and what a wash is trying to do is it's trying to disperse from the raised areas and find its way into the recesses. So a wash, while transparent, is trying to be opaque where it settles. And that's what I mean by like when I use wash. Now you can wash in shades, you can be subtle, you can do anything you want. Now with glazing, the concept is that you're trying to stay translucent the entire time, and that the glaze stays where you put it, versus the wash is kind of moving around, draining with gravity. So they're almost the same. You can do a wash or a glaze with any color, any pigment, any day of the week. It's about how you want to approach it. So this is a wash, marketed as a wash set, but I actually find a lot more success with this whole set using them with the glaze technique. And we're going to show you that here today. If you guys don't mind, I want to do a quick roll call. I got to shout out a couple of clutch individuals over on my Patreon page. Of course, we got my man James, Blair, Paul, Florian, Sean, Kenneth, Tom, my man Robert, John, Bart, Bernie, John Eric, Stavros, Frederick, Dane, Michael. Thank you guys. I can't do it without you. Came in clutch this week. It is how I keep the lights on. Thank you. And don't forget about Twitch. It is the home of the live tutorials. You're not going to want to miss a thing over on Twitch. We're working with Creature Caster right now, and we're working on some of that Nurgle style. All right, let's do this thing, guys. My main man, Commander Nemo, up on deck. This is a P3 bust, and you can see we did a lot of work on him last week. So let's start right out the gate with my main company right here, Secret Weapon Miniatures. I love these guys. Let's use the Ruby wash, and we're going to use it as a glaze, as I previously discussed. Got a little bit of water here. A little bit of medium. I'll cover that later, don't worry. And what we're trying to do is create a very thin coat here. And we're just tracing the shadows that have been naturally cast by our airbrushing from the previous video. Some quick directional bursts with our airbrush have told the story. We're just simply painting by numbers. Very light strokes. Keeping the paint loose and wet with that medium. And it's staying right where we're putting it, which is what makes it a glaze. We're just simply tinting the colors with a little bit of rosy hues to make him alive. Because right now, even though he looks like he has human skin, he's basically dead. He has no natural colors in him. We used a couple of cool colors from P3 to create those shadows, and now we're just tinting it using the Secret Weapon. Now we're going to start tracing the ear. We're even going to focus a little bit maybe on the hairline, anywhere we see shadows being cast by our directional airbrushing and by lights. And that's kind of what's fun about these larger models, is that a lot more light casts a lot more shadows because they have bigger features. And that does help create a natural look. And it also helps you be subtle. Like, you don't need to be super extreme. We're being very subtle here, and we're going to let these highlights ride for the most part. So we're basically attacking anything that looks like a shadow with a very light coat of this ruby. The fun thing about skin is there's actually a lot of fun colors in skin. We're focusing on these rosier hues to try to breathe life into him. You see there was a nice shadow being cast under his cheekbone right here, and we're just tinting that, adding that rosy hue, tracing it up to his hairline, making sure a little bit of that cheekbone stays untouched by the ruby so that that highlight still exists. Under his lip, you see everything that is a natural shadow. Let it ride. He's also got an interesting couple of creases in his forehead. And the fun thing about those creases in his forehead is they're barely there. They're so subtle. We're lucky that the airbrush actually caught those. So now we're going to reinforce those. We're going to trace along the goggles, anywhere there might be a shadow, anything like that, create a rosy hint, a little bit of a hue. And then we're going to come in there and slice some details in if we can. But for the most part, this glaze is basically dry. It stays a little satin because of how much glaze medium we've introduced to the mix. You just have to be patient, let it fully dry. Even though it looks wet, it's almost dry. Here we go. We're going to slice in a little bit more definition to these creases. Upgrade. You see that? It does stay wet for a long time, so you can manipulate it. But once you see any kind of peeling occurring, it's done. Stop messing with it. Try not to even get to that stage. So here we go. This is one of my favorite secret weapon miniature washes. This is Parchment. This is an amazing tone. And of course, Cotton Candy. These are so clutch together to use them in conjunction. So here we go. We're going to start looking for the shadows that are more aggressive. And we're going to try to feather into this new color. So right out the gate, we're going to pick the top of his nose. And we're going to create an incredible highlight. This is almost all parchment with a very little amount of cotton candy in it. A little bit on his cheekbone right here. We're going to go right up against the harshest shadow line. Boom. Try to create a more dramatic highlight. Real simple. Same thing on the bottom of his chin here. Anywhere we see a harsh shadow, we're going to try to counter it with some nice highlighting. And this is a total glaze. It's very thin, very wet, lots of medium in it. Here we go on his cheekbone on the other side of his face. Looking good, a nice clean line. And it's very wet, guys. It's so subtle. Under his eyelid, boom. And this is like the thinnest of all thin paints, guys. Absolutely game-changing. Now we're going to cut in under the creases on his forehead, creating more definition so the highlight is on the bottom of the wrinkle. Looking good. Hit a little bit on his earlobes. Try to create some natural colors there, some natural highlights, real easy. And it's so easy. This is not an aggressive technique. This is a very subtle technique. Can't emphasize that enough. You gotta be patient with it. Same deal on the other side. Anything you do on one side of the face, you have to mirror on the other. Symmetry, as it were. Feeling pretty good about this. We're breathing a lot of life into this miniature. Okay, let's reinforce some of these shadows now. Back to Ruby. With a smaller detail brush, let's cut some of that glaze back in to really make those creases pop. Anywhere else we think we should go, we're going to go there right now. A little bit on the inside of the eyebrow. Keep it loose, keep it thin. I periodically dip back into my glaze in water to make sure I'm real thin. There we go. Creating some nice definition, some nice hues there. Great tint. And this is fun because this is easy. We're not stressed. We're not in there trying to wet blend these amazing transitions in. We are not having to be super aggressive. We're just using very thin coats of paint, essentially, over and over again, and they will naturally blend themselves into each other. It's a very easy technique, guys. And I find it very fun when you have a big model like this that casts all its own shadows naturally. We're just reinforcing it. So now we're introducing a little bit of that cotton candy, a little bit of that ruby together, and we're going to soften out some of the edges of these harder lines right here. So there's a little bit of pink now introduced. So that way, as we reinforce them, they are blending into themselves naturally, and we're getting ourselves a nice, marriage of soft colors blended into each other and righteous contrast. So it is a back and forth process. Essentially, I will show you guys my palette here in a second so you can see how I'm drawing from all the glazes at once while trying to create this contrast and these soft blurred lines. Here we go, introducing a little bit more of that pink. There it is, and we're just softly blending it away from that aggressive ruby right there. And you see immediately how it tints it, how we've totally changed the narrative of that color. Adding a little bit more in to pinkify some of his cheeks, give him some more rosy life right there. More than one color makes up the human skin. So now we've introduced several colors on top of several colors. We had about 4 colors of skin in the airbrush phase, and now we've had 3 separate glazes introduced to make him look alive. We're just reinforcing subtly, Added a little bit more here and there. Anywhere it doesn't look dark enough, we're going to keep making it darker, but while introducing that pink. Same thing, adding a little bit of pink to soften that line a little bit to give ourselves a nice natural blend. Absolutely looking his best right now. My main man Nemo looks alive, staring at me with his cold, dead eyes. At least he doesn't have dead skin anymore. All right, same deal. Reinforce the highlights now. Back to our parchment with a little bit of cotton candy mixed in. And we're just gonna pick out some raised areas to make even brighter. Totally creating contrast. Remember, contrast is just about making light areas lighter and dark areas darker. And see how we're going right up against that dark bag under his eye, creating a nice natural highlight, and then right there under the pillow of his eye. Look at that. No blending, just glazing technique. Such an easy and fun technique, guys. This would have been a nightmare to just try to wet blend it all in. We're literally just dabbing it on, letting it dry, dabbing it on, letting it dry. And comboing it off of some real smooth airbrushing. And so there's not almost any texture on this model. We have some nice organic paint strokes maybe, real thin glazes, real good contrast, but for the most part, very smooth, very organic. I like that. We're just doing a final spot and check here, see if there's any more highlights we want. We're reinforcing that crease yet again. Let it dry, let it soften. All right, so this is what I've been working out of. A couple of bottle lids right here, ancient Chinese technique. We got some water in one, a little bit of medium mixed into all those lids right here. I'm just using some basic matte medium from Liquitex. That easy, and I'm just drawing from those throughout the video. Now let's introduce flesh wash. So it's funny that this is a flesh wash, but we barely used it. Well, now we're finally gonna use it as our last step. We're gonna mix it in with a little ruby, and we're gonna just reinforce the darkest regions of these shadows. So now that there's a brown involved. So now we have reds, pinks, peaches, and an actual brownish color in the actual glaze stage. So we're absolutely creating a very multicolored, very realistic take on this skin tone. I think we had 4 acrylic paints and now 4 acrylic based glazes. So 8 totally different colors to make up this face. But you see, it's real low stress. It's not that hard. That's what we talk about techniques here at Next Level Painting, ancient Chinese techniques all day or day. Nemo on point, loving this guy. He's been so fun to get this skin down, but we got more to do, guys. We got to do the armor. He's got 2 big shoulder harnesses. We're going to have OSL effects on this guy. This will be a very fun project, and we will make a tutorial out of every stage. Big shout out, obviously, to Privateer Press, providing the model. They are our official sponsor of Next Level Painting. And of course, Secret Weapon Miniatures for providing the washes, another sponsor. Definitely check these guys out when you get an opportunity, and the links in the description box below. Couple of last strokes here, guys. 1 or 2 finishing touches. Couple of soft blends, introducing a little bit more flesh wash. Here we go. Just nitpicking at this point. There he is. This is how he looks now, okay? He's still a little shiny, so I just matted him down. There he is, now that he's not quite as shiny. Now let's compare him to where we were when we started. There he is, cold, dead eyes. Commander Nemo, you are now alive. Big shout out.